This is a special collaboration between the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment and the Producers and Engineers Wing of the Recording Academy. I'm very excited to be here with you, not with you, but with you in spirit, to talk about something very exciting, especially for musicians, or perhaps frustrating, depending on what side of this issue you fall under. But we're going to be talking today about remote recording. Remote recording has always been a part of the recording experience, especially in the voiceover space. That's always been something that we've had the technology and the capability to do over distance. But obviously the issues with the COVID-19 crisis and pandemic in the world has created this space where regular musicians have to constantly think about how to collaborate over distance. We've seen a lot of artists, a lot of musicians have to very quickly pivot to finding ways to jam over distance, finding ways to record, finding ways to do production sessions and songwriting sessions over distance. And for many people, it's been frustrating, but it's also been a great time for new innovation and for creatives to find opportunities to use technology to push the boundaries of creativity and using the limitations of sheltering in place and quarantining and the lack of travel to create a space where we're finding new opportunities technologically to push our limits and to get outside of our comfort zone. So that's pretty much what our talk is going to be about today. We're going to be talking about a number of applications and a number of different technologies that are there at our disposal to be creative in a time such as this. So welcome to Remote Recording for the Modern Creative. And obviously, when we're speaking about creatives, we're speaking very specifically about producers, engineers, musicians, songwriters, individuals who are working in the musical space as creatives. So today's class, we will be focusing on a few specific areas. So we'll be defining remote collaboration for music creatives, right? What is it? What are we specifically talking about? I talked a little bit about it in the introduction, but I'll be stripping that down and distilling that even further moving forward. Assessing the impact of remote collaboration on musicians, right? How has it actually affected how we do what we do and the tools that we use to do what we do, right? Identifying the pros and cons of remote music making, right? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Reviewing digital applications and resources that are out there, and reviewing digital creative communities that are out there that are popping up. Some have already been there, others are burgeoning and new on the scene as a result of COVID-19. So we'll be talking about those as well. The objectives of the class are essentially to have you leave with a general overview of technologies that perhaps you didn't know about, that, you know, my hope is that you'll leave saying, I didn't know about that one application or that one website or that one mode of creating. I didn't know that this was something that I could access for free, or I didn't know that this was a paid service that was out there for me. So I want to just provide a general overview. Of course, we won't be able to go in depth in the time that we have. And also, I won't be demoing any of the products because the internet has better reviews than me. So, and better reviews than I could actually do. So I will be relying on information and tutorials that have been created by the actual manufacturers and creators of these digital platforms to teach us and tell us a little bit about what they do. So the goal is very, very specific in that what we're looking to do is just maybe learn one or two things that we didn't already know, right? We're not going to be going over how to make an album on your iPhone and collaborate in 5 different countries um, on that one album, and how to seamlessly do that with no latency, right? We're not going to be able to go into that type of technical detail and have that type of immersive conversation, but we will be able to do an overview of what's out there at your disposal, and how these technologies are shifting culture and consciousness. Okay, so let's just find a very basic working definition for remote collaboration for our purposes today. So in short, we'll be talking about remote collaboration for musicians, which involves recording, producing, songwriting, or jamming live with collaborators who are not in the same room. Right? That's when we're talking about remote collaboration for the purposes of this workshop. That's what we're talking about, right? So if you have a friend in Hawaii and you're in New York and you guys can't catch a flight to work together in the studio like you're used to, how are you able to collaborate now? What are some of the tools that you may be using to do so? In addition to that, we will do a brief overview of some tools that you can use with people who may be local to you, but not necessarily in the same room, right? So you may be collaborating with somebody in your same house that you have to be distanced from for obvious reasons, because of COVID-19 or the coronavirus. And so you still have a distance issue. So we'll be talking about some really cool functionalities that you can use even if you're on the same Wi-Fi network, right? That you can still use, but still remain distant from each other. I want to talk very quickly about the benefits and disadvantages of remote collabs. I think they're fairly obvious, but I figured why not just like throw this in here. So the first is obviously the opportunity to create with all types of people, irrespective of location, right? I think that in the future, remote collaboration may be one of the primary ways that we're able to build community over distance and to create using the means that we have locally, but being able to bring people from around the globe into that process, right? I think it's really exciting, not for lawyers, obviously, or publishers, but very exciting for creatives to be creating music across territories, right? I think that will produce such a flavorful new type of sound, right? We may see new genres come from this. We may see new cultural art forms in the music space, even new instruments come from this. So it's very exciting to be able to start a track in New York and have a bassist finish it in Zimbabwe and be able to collaborate in real time, as opposed to sending files up to a cloud and having to download those files, right? We're finding that as technology expands and bandwidth expands, and as we figure out how to manage network latency, which this time has really caused many people to have to think very critically about and very conscientiously about, as we're approaching this new era, we're going to see the barriers, the geographical and regional barriers, be less and less important as we're able to collaborate in real time over distance, right? So everything is moving toward real time collaboration. And I believe that in time, we will achieve it and it will be seamless in time. So that's definitely an advantage there. A second advantage is the convenience of not having to travel to a gig or working from the comfort of your home. I think we've all become quite acquainted with the comforts of working with home. I'm sorry, of the comforts of working from home. We're comfortable in our jammies. We're taking our meetings in socks and hush puppies. If you don't know what hush puppies are, those are a very delicious breaded cornbread treat that we have down here in the South, where I'm currently located in Tennessee, but it's also a house shoe. So we are getting very acquainted with taking meetings in our pajamas and our hush puppies and being very comfortable. And it's nice if you're a creative who has all of your favorite equipment in your home studio or at home, and you have access to that. I mean, we can't put all of our favorite gear in a backpack and take it somewhere. So it's great, the growing development, the developing the growth in the recording, the remote recording and collaboration space is creating an opportunity for people to work from wherever. And that also is going to enhance the quality of the music we're able to make. The disadvantages of remote collabs, right? We've all know the first one, obviously, network latency, right? Because of bandwidth issues, because of hardware issues, the type of cabling that's being used, different data plans, right? Different upload and download speeds. It has created an issue where network latency really completely sabotages most all musicians' ability to collaborate in real time. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that more in depth today and why it is that we're hoping that technology will catch up at some point. And some technologies that I will show you today boast that they have potentially already figured it out, right? The inability to be in the same environment as collaborators, making improv and vibe difficult, right? We put a lot of stress on this concept of vibe, which comes when you have multiple creatives, multiple musicians, producers, engineers in the same room, and the type of music that they're able to create when the vibe that they have together and essentially the chemistry and the camaraderie they have comes through the music itself, right? So that's very limited. It's not possible in the same way when you're working remotely. So that's another disadvantage. And the last disadvantage is the inability for engineers and producers to oversee the technical processes, compromising fidelity and the highest quality of music, right? So if you're working with artists that are now having to record themselves, and if you're producing artists and engineers that you can't actually be with them in the studio, and they're responsible for knowing how to position the microphones and turn on the preamps, and they have to all of a sudden become engineers when that's not their skill set. It makes it very hard to oversee the technical process with the same amount of detail that we're used to as engineers and producers. So that's another disadvantage. There are more pros and more disadvantages, but we're just gonna go with those 5 for now. I'm gonna move on to the next slide. In this presentation, we're gonna talk about essentially 3 types of tools, 3 types of remote collaboration tools. And I've broken them down into real-time jam tools. So these are the types of tools that bands use, musicians use to collaborate with as little latency as possible, right? The types of technology that you would use to rehearse with your band if you can't physically be there, or the type of technology that you would use to just jam with your musician friends. If you're a jazz musician and you got a jam, you haven't done a gig in a year and you need that experience, right? Those are the types of real-time jam tools that we'll be reviewing. We'll also be reviewing cloud-based production tools, right? So these are tools that sometimes are browser-based, sometimes they're local, but they have cloud functionality. So we'll be talking about some of the tools that exist on the market specifically for producers and engineers or songwriters and artists who are looking to essentially do remote recording sessions over the internet. And lastly, we'll be looking at 2 fun social networking music tools that are essentially tools that allow artists to find each other and collaborate remotely, right? So one of the tools that we'll be looking at is billed as the Tinder of the music world. It's an application that allows artists to swipe left and right and as they attempt to identify the perfect collaborators. So we'll be looking at some of those tools as well. All right, so let's start off with these real-time jam tools, right? Tools that help live musicians play music together over the internet with as little latency as possible, right? So we got to define latency. And for those of you who don't know, I've used it quite a bit. And there's an app out there called Jacktrip, which is an open source software application that enables the live performance of music over the internet by reducing latency. And they actually, on their website, had a really great video for explaining latency. So I was like, I'm not going to try to paraphrase any of that. I'm just going to go and take that video and share it today, because I think they did an excellent job and they did it in very layman's terms, because that's going to be a recurring theme that comes up as we continue to talk about remote collaboration, because as I mentioned before, it is one of the most important issues that we face as we move toward the future with remote collaboration. But Jacktrip attempts to solve all the latency problems and allow musicians to jam by addressing not only network issues, but by addressing hardware issues as well. They actually have a hardware device that you'd have to plug all of your cables into and all of your peripherals into as a means of jamming your headphones, your microphone, so forth and so on, so that you could properly access the benefits of the software application itself. So you're dealing with two different types of areas, hardware and software. And I'm going to hand it over to the wonderful Jacktrip people to explain what it is that they do and how it is that they've been successful at it.
Getting a band together to play is hard enough already, but playing together on a video call, that might be harder than you think. And here's why. Every time you talk over a video call, it takes time for your voice to travel over the internet and for the people on the other end to hear you. That's called latency. We can tolerate it in conversation, but it makes playing music together almost impossible. And for jazz musicians, improvising is our lifeblood. Without other musicians to play with, there's no improvising. To play together, we have to hear each other at the exact same time, or at least perceive it that way. And it takes time for sound to travel any distance. But a study showed that in person, musicians can still play in sync up to 30 feet apart. Sound travels that 30 feet in about 30 milliseconds. Over a video call, it usually takes about 500 milliseconds or half a second. Now this is what a 30 millisecond delay sounds like. It's there, but it's hard to notice. Now this is a 500 millisecond delay. Big difference, right? With that added latency, playing in sync becomes impossible. So if video calls are too slow, is there a way for musicians in quarantine to play together?
I remember when I was a teenager, I once tried to do like a little rehearsal with a bassist over the phone, and it's just like, it's hopeless because you're getting at least half a second, often over a second of latency, and it's just terrible.
Dan told us that a few weeks ago, another musician asked him if someone in Hawaii could play with someone in New York City.
Well, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, right? This is like a basic tenet of physics. Nothing. And it does take light some time to get from place to place. And so I got like a little piece of paper out and I wrote down New York to Hawaii is 8,000 kilometers and light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second.
And if you do the math, it takes about 52 milliseconds for light to do New York to Hawaii round trip. And remember, for musicians to play together, they need latencies of 30 milliseconds or lower.
So at the end of the day, there is no possible way, unless literally the fundamental laws of physics change, that someone in New York could play in real time with someone in Hawaii in any kind of meaningful, real rhythmic interaction type of way.
Okay, so it sounds like New York City to Hawaii isn't going to happen. But Dan tweeted about this, and somewhere in the comments there was a beacon of hope. A link to a video made by another jazz tech guru, Michael Desson.
As a musician, I compose and perform and deal with different kinds of technologies, but one area of my research is this networked music making, and it went from being a curious novelty for people to suddenly being an urgent necessity to learn about. So my phone's been ringing off the hook.
Since the early 2000s, Michael has been using an open source software created at Stanford University called Jack Trip to rehearse and perform music remotely with other musicians.
What it does is it moves audio data specifically in a very efficient way at very high quality, meaning you can capture really high quality sound recordings and move them immediately, very quickly across networks with the minimal travel time.
So that is Jack Trip, and it is a trip, right? It literally is a trip in so many ways, right? It's figuring out the ways in which creatives can still use their voice, use their art form as a means of a catharsis, but also as a means of release during a time that has been so difficult. And they figured out the science of it. I'm gonna go back to the first page here so you can see it's jacktrip.org. If you're jamming live and you're a musician and you've been looking for a tool, as many musicians have been, I would definitely advise checking out Jack Trip. Even if you're not necessarily a gigging musician, it might be useful to you even as a producer or an engineer, because right, it allows you potentially to be able to jam live with your artist and find melodies, you know, with an artist very easily, or create chords with your collaborators, just, you know, plucking out a few notes here and there and trying to figure out interesting creative sonics that you can continue to build out on your own or in collaboration, right? So that's Jack Trip. We're gonna go on to Ninjam, which I'm not gonna spend too much time on, but it's another open source program that's available through general public license. The software pretty much creates the same type of opportunity for artists to use music as a means of continuing to stay active, but also to produce live jam options for musicians. So that's another one to check out. Jam Kazam is another really cool tool. It's a service that lets musicians play music with each other from their own homes. You can pre-record your performance by track or broadcast the whole performance live, which adds another element here that's more of a social element for the artists out there that have been craving, the performance aspect of it and the performance aspect of creating music and have been wanting to find an audience. There's a community aspect built into Jam Kazam. You can also use the platform as a collaborative rehearsal tool between bandmates, because audio registers way faster between computers than other programs, right? So we've all been there with Google Hangouts or Zoom. We've all been there, even with audio movers with Listen To. That's a very popular application to use too. There's still latency issues with those applications. So, and with the addition of video with Zoom and Google Hangouts, a lot of artists have found that those programs are so robust that they can actually slow down your digital audio program, your DAW, right? So Jam Kazam is slightly different. Let's check out how it works.
Jamkazam is a new live music platform for musicians. With Jamkazam, musicians can play music together in real time from different locations over the internet, as if they are sitting in the same room.
So So I think the great thing about Jam is the flexibility that it gives you as an artist or a group of artists looking to communicate over distance or work over distance. It gives you these multi-tracking functionality, which is really great. I mean, when we really think about it, multi-tracking was such a major advancement when it first came along within the recording process. Now we've added multi-tracking to the cloud experience, which it speaks volumes about how far we've come as a recording community. And I think this is a great tool for artists who aren't producers, right? They don't necessarily have a ton of music production experience, but they can set up Jam and have a multi-track. They can go in and do volume changes. They can go in and have some sort of control over a multi-track, which I think is really great. And also the social media and networking capability, I think is great. And you can sign up for free, right? So this is another tool that's out there at your disposal as an artist that you can take full advantage of. The next application is called Compose, which allows musicians to crowdsource their compositions across the internet, which I think is very interesting. If you don't have a band of collaborators and you're cooped up in the house and you don't know where to find creatives, you can actually use the internet as a means of identifying creatives to help you with your new compositions. So it's a collaborative tool that allows musicians to record, upload, and invite new collaborators from around the world to contribute. So it's compose.com. In addition to Compose, you have another application called Endless, which I think is great because Endless is more geared toward loop-based composers who want to collaborate over distance live, right? So it's creating and combining a couple of different communities, right? It's electronic music creators, beat makers, beat composers, track composers. It's geared towards those individuals, and it's also geared towards individuals who are big on loop-based production, which is a major part of the production landscape these days. Beat-driven and loop-based production. And this tool is built around helping you find collaborators in that space to do live looping or to create live. And it's really interesting how it comes together. Endless is a live looper app that allows users to start jams, which are essentially just loops. And a unique URL is made for the jam and it can be shared for anyone to collaborate. So that's www.endless.fm. It's just a really cool app to check out. I mean, I hope that one of the things I hope is that I'm introducing people to free apps that are close to free, that are fun and communicative and collaborative, that will help us all step a little bit out of our comfort zone during this time that has pushed us all the way out of it. But I'd like to show you guys a little bit about how Endless works, which I think is really cool and inspiring.
I'm Tim Exile, the founder of Endless, an app that lets you make music with your friends live from anywhere in the world. And I'm going to show you how to set up a jam and get started. You'll need an iOS device such as an iPhone or an iPad and some wired headphones. Follow the link in the description to download and install the app. Set up your account and let Endless guide you through the basics of how to make beats and music. You can also use your own acoustic or electronic instruments to make music with Endless. Head to My Jams, start a jam, give it a name, then invite your friends. Copy the link and send it to anyone you want to jam with. Just like a Google Hangout, anyone who has the link will be able to join your jam.
I personally think it's cool. You guys might not think it's cool, but I think it's really great that I can be anywhere and be inspired with a beat and not know necessarily what to do with it, or be curious about what my good friend would send to me, right? If I'm here in Tennessee and my good friend who's a bassist is in New York, I can just text her the link, like, which basically signals to her that, hey, I'm jamming right now. If you want to jam and you have the time, jam with me. I think it's a great way to be social, to be collaborative, to get outside of the quarantine isolation even, and have a really great byproduct from it, which is a really cool track. So you're collaborating effortlessly with people. You're not just sitting in your studio trying to think of a melody. It's like, hey, no, like I started this jam, here's the link, let's go, like send me something back. I just think it's great. It's like a musical text message in a way. So that's Endless. And that's the end of what we were calling our kind of like live jam applications. Now I want to talk a little bit about cloud-based production tools. So many of us are producers and songwriters and composers, and we're focused on building tracks, right? We're not necessarily trying to jam, maybe to some extent, but our larger collective goal is to produce tracks that we can then encode and upload to the internet and share and continue to build upon over time, right? So these tools are tools that will help musicians, producers, composers, etc., create tracks over the internet with as little latency as possible. So let's jump into these tools. BandLab. BandLab is really cool. I don't know how many of you know about it, but I gather that it started off as just an educational tool for students, and now it's just like been hijacked by all these kids on the internet that are taking it and like making trap music with it. So, but I gather that it had a much different beginning. I believe it was mostly meant for teachers and students to have a space to create music and to manage music instruction. And so it has this cloud-based DAW called BandLab that is meant to help in the educational space. And now it's really interesting to see how young people on YouTube, all you got to do is go to YouTube and input BandLab, and you see what pops up, and it's really interesting the type of music the children are remixing and using it as a modern music production tool, and that's really cool. I would definitely suggest that you do that, but I have input the standard tutorial from the BandLab people. But in your spare time, go check out some of these kids on YouTube because they're pretty lit and pretty amazing. But let's check out BandLab.
Hi guys, my name's Tommy and welcome to BandLab. Today I'm going to show you how simple it is to record and mix using our 12-track mix editor. You ready? Let's get started.
To start, it's as simple as clicking on the Create button to start a new project. From there, you'll get 4 options: BandLab Instruments, Drum Machine, Voice and Mic, and Guitar. Choose an instrument and you're ready to start recording music. We've selected one of BandLab's awesome instruments. Record a full live session, or if you have a great but short musical idea you want to repeat, simply click the loop function at the top right corner of the region. Simply click the top right corner of the region and drag to loop. BandLab allows you to create and layer up to 12 tracks in your song. Once you're done, you can download and export all of your individual tracks as high-quality, uncompressed files. You can also mix down your tracks and combine them into one file, either as an MP3 or as a WAV file. Sharing your new song is as simple as clicking Publish. Add a description, genre, and location of where the song was recorded. Best of all, you can choose to make your project forkable, allowing you to share your work with other people around the world to collaborate on your projects.
And that's it. So simple. So what are you waiting for? Let's make some music.
nothing's ever really that simple, but I do appreciate his enthusiasm because it is very exciting. I mean, I find it exciting. You get 12 multi-tracks to do cloud-based music production. It's accessible wherever you are, and there's also a mobile app and mobile functionality, which is great. Also, what I really love is that most of the applications we have reviewed so far have sharing capability and allow you to export and share your work, which I think speaks volumes about where we are in culture and society with respect to music making, right? Music making has become a shareable process. It's a community initiative now. Even when you think about the more primitive ways in which people share music, right? TikTok videos and IG stories and you know whatever's happening in the social media spaces, people want to remix. People want to have some sort of say in the way music sounds. They want to be practitioners. They want to be collaborators, and they want to then be able to share their work and to give people access to it. And I think it's very powerful. We're less in the space where music production is about incubation, and we're moving toward a space where music making is meant to be all the aspects and the processes associated with it are meant to be shared in real time. And I think that's a very important cultural note to take sometimes. And I think it's really cool that we're there, even if quarantine is what put us in the space, or an international pandemic is what put us in this space. I think it's really cool that we've become much more, we've been granting more access as artists to the public when it comes to our process, and that's super exciting. Let's go to another tool. Let's talk about Avid Cloud Collaboration, right? Avid Cloud Collaboration is designed for Pro Tools. It was rolled out many years ago. And it basically turns Pro Tools as we know and love it, which is a digital audio workstation that is the industry standard across industries in music and television and film. It's our modern digital tape machine of sorts that most all engineers use or either aware of. It is the same old Pro Tools that we know and love, but with a few cloud-based features. And some of those features include the possibility to upload tracks to a server, to invite collaborators, to save projects in the cloud. So for those Pro Tools users out there, I'm sure you've heard of Avid Cloud Collaboration, but I would urge that you maybe check it out and see if it works for you. If you're already a Pro Tools user and just need that extra nudge to get into it, I would say definitely the website is down below. Definitely check it out. Let's talk about Soundtrap, which is owned by Spotify. Soundtrap at the top of quarantine started to buzz a little bit. It already had a place among young people, among kids, had a pretty good demographic of users among younger kids, and it was already becoming a really interesting DAW. It's cloud-based. It's a digital audio workstation, can be accessed in any browser and has a mobile application as well. You can multi-track, you can pre-record, you can use other instruments, you can do all the things that you would do in Logic or Ableton or Studio One or what have you. And you can connect obviously your MIDI peripherals, which is really great. So it's full functioning DAW. It's just cloud-based. And over the COVID crisis, there were discounts given as well for access to it. So I would urge, if you're at all interested in getting into it, or if you don't have a DAW and you want to use something that is cloud-based, I would urge you to check out Soundtrap as a potential collaboration tool. So let's learn a little bit more about it. So Soundtrap is really great for those of us who don't have a lot of money to spend on a DAW, don't have a lot of resources, and would like to collaborate over distance. There are lots of built-in social networking features, right? So there's the video chat, there's the audio chat, there's the text chat, which is great. I mean, I think when you're making music with individuals, you're working with other producers, it's really great to have some sort of features that allow for easy communication, as well as your real-time track creation, right? And since it's browser-based, yeah, it's very easy to access what each of you or the group of you will be doing in close to real time, right? So that Soundtrap, once again, it's owned by Spotify. You can go to soundtrap.com to learn more about it. I don't believe it's very expensive. And once again, there have been discounts over quarantine. So really good DAW to get into at this time. Steinberg VST, Transit Go, or Join. The VST Transit Go essentially requires an iPad, but what it will allow you to do is to create a cloud for the projects that you're working in. So you don't have to necessarily work in a new DAW, right? With Soundtrap or some of the other projects, some of the other applications that I've shown you, they've maybe taken folks a little bit out of the big three world. And what I mean by that is either Logic, Ableton, or Pro Tools worlds, where quite a bit of music is made. If you say, no, I want to make all my stuff in Ableton, well, you can use this third-party program to create a cloud for the work that you're doing within your DAW of choice. So let's check out a little bit of this. This video is kind of long. I'm gonna skip to the meat and potatoes of it.
Transit, the recording. And now I have a brand new project right here. There are different ways that you can bring material into VST Transit Join. One of the ways is to drag and drop material from Explorer or Finder. or from your DAW if your DAW supports that function. But the other way is to record audio straight from your DAW into VST Transit Join.
I would like to quickly just jump into this video and say that if you notice in this example where Pro Tools is being used, the VST Transit is a third-party plugin that has to be set up on an instrument track. It has to specifically be placed on an instrument track, not an aux. And you would then bus whatever audio you want to send to VST Transit, which once again is being operated remotely from to a laptop or from a laptop. You can route the audio from whatever tracks you want to send to VST Transit. You can route it to that instrument track, which will then route it to VST Transit. So I just want to give you that background information so you wouldn't be totally confused about what he's doing in this moment.
What you need to do is create a track, and let's call it beat. You can also change the color of the track. Let's say red. And now we need to route audio from my DAW into VST Transit Join. All you need to do is go to your bus or your audio channels, and now you need to route them to your instrument channel, which is the VST Transit instrument channel. Now we need to set the input on VST Transit. Hit the recording button right here, and we also hit the record button on the VST Transit Join transfer bar. Now all I need to do is hit play on my DAW. And as you can see, VST Transit Join records the audio that plays back from my DAW. Now let's mute the bus that plays the audio from my DAW, and let's just solo VST Transit. And you will see that now the audio plays from VST Transit. So I can change the level, I can change the panning, so now let me give you a quick overview of the tools that we have in VST Transit Join. First, we have the select tool that allows you to select any audio event in the project window. Then we also have the repeat tool that repeats the audio event when you click on it. We also have undo and redo functions that are completely separate to the undo and redo on your DAW. We also have a split tool that allows you to split the audio events. Erase allows you to erase an audio event. And mute allows you to mute the selected audio event. We also have copy and paste so that you can copy and paste material into different sections of your song.
So I'm just gonna stop him there, and we're gonna skip around a little bit more. I just wanna stop here and interject and say, hey, you might be thinking like, why is this important? Well, you can think of this VST Transit as a more robust, more sophisticated version of Audio Movers Listen To, right? So it's the same idea. You're sending audio to a third-party plugin that is then responsible for sending that audio out into the world, uploading it somewhere, sending a stream of it somewhere else so that somebody can listen to it or somebody can jam with it or what have you, right? This is just a more sophisticated, more robust version of that, where the audio that you're sending can be edited, it can be manipulated slightly, and you can add more collaborators to within the plugin or within the application itself to collaborate to what you've created. So if somebody wants to sing a vocal and send it and upload it into the actual project in VST Transit, they can do that, right? So it's a way to have more control over the stream that you're sending, and so as to manage collaboration a lot more efficiently and effectively, in addition to transmission. So let's skip ahead a little bit until where he starts to kind of talk about collaboration. And adding more users.
We can also see that he plays bass, guitar, and synths. So now I can click on this. I can find some info about Dave. Now let's go and friend Dave. Now let's go and check out what happens on Dave's side on the iPad and VST Transit Go. As you can see, the interface looks pretty much identical. Dave has my friend request right here. So you can go ahead. Accept invitation from Dom Segalas, yes. And now Dave, the guitar guy, is on my friends list, as you can see on the VST Transit Join interface. At this point, let me mention that we might be using a third-party DAW right here, but of course, VST Transit Go works perfectly with Cubase as well. Now we can start texting each other. Straight away, I have an indication for a new message on my Friends tab. If we go back to Transit Join, we can see Dave's reply. Again, bear in mind, these are two separate accounts. Dave could be on a different country, completely different place, with completely different setup, but we would be able to communicate that easily. So now all I need to do is go to my projects, go to my Upper Street Beat, and now I can invite Dave to this project. So let's go to projects now. And you can see that now Upper Street Beat is on Dave's project list. So let's click on that and open it. Now, as you can see, both VST Transit Join and VST Transit Go share the same project. We can see the exact same audio. I can zoom in and zoom out on every application, and I can see the exact same material.
Right, okay. So VST Transit is a really cool way to essentially add cloud collaboration features into your DAW if you don't have them, right? Or if they're limiting or limited, right? So this is also a really good tool for those of us out there who are cooped up in the house and want to find a way to collaborate. Using this plugin is a really cool way to achieve that. SPLICE Studio is also, we all know SPLICE as a place to go and get loops, right? But SPLICE also has SPLICE Studio, which supports a host of DAW, Ableton, Logic Pro, FL Studio, GarageBand, and Studio One. So essentially with SPLICE Studio, you can throw your projects or your session files into this cloud, and you can collaborate on the cloud, within the cloud with others. So you don't have to have a different DAW, you don't have to use a DAW that you're not comfortable with, but SPLICE Studio provides some additional networking and cloud-based features that you wouldn't have otherwise, right? So that's also another potential app that you can use. Let's quickly talk about social networking music apps, right? So we've talked about the Jam apps, we've talked about the cloud-based collaboration apps for music producers and engineers and songwriters. Let's talk a little bit about these social networking music apps, tools that help creatives find each other. There are a lot of those out there. I picked two that are perhaps lesser known that I think, you know, might be interesting to check out. So there's Vamper, which is basically billed as the Tinder for musicians. It allows you to swipe left or swipe right, according to an artist or a musician and their musicality or what have you. So you go on the app, you set up an account, and you just swipe and swipe and swipe until you find a creative that, you know, you might want to collaborate with. And it's really, there's some success stories. There's some people who have found each other. If you're in the house and you're looking for a creative or somebody that can help you and you don't really know where to go, and DMing people on Instagram is not really helping you, this might be a really cool app to use.
Dude, what if we made an app for musicians? You swipe left and right. There is an app like that, actually.
There is? The social media for musicians.
Yeah.
Oh shit, and you tell me that worked.
It worked.
That is so dope. Vamper. So you swipe left and met him.
Yeah, shout out to Vamper.
Shout out to Vamper. Just want to give a shout out to Vamper.
Thanks to Vamper. We just met up 2 weeks ago.
Thanks, Vamper, for hooking me up with Carpool Tunnel.
Shout out to application VAMPR.
Thank you so much, Vamper.
Thank you for connecting us.
Thank you, Vamper.
We
just want to give a shout.
I mean, in the era of anything goes, like, you know, this app with 30,000 Instagram followers could lead to your next hit. I mean, crazier things have happened, right? So this is a place where you can go if you're, 6 million connections made, so they boast, right? So this is another space. This music networking is happening on so many different platforms and in so many different ways. So Vamper is another option for you. Vocalizer is really cool because it is an app that looks to specifically connect singers with producers, right? So you can go to vocalizer.com if you're looking to find an artist that can make beats for you or that can produce your next album, or you're looking for a singer, you're an artist with tracks and you're looking for singers or rappers even. I think this is a really good platform as well. Just watch a little bit of this.
Hey guys, this is Luke Sharble, and here we have the Vocalizer Beta. I thought I'd show you some of the cool little things we've got going on. First off tonight, we've got the Vocalizer activity feed. As you can see, a bunch of users signing up. They're not real users though, keep your hats on. And we've got all the things up here: Gig Hunter, Find Producers, Find Vocalists, and Gig Center. Tonight though, we're just going to do a simple thing, which is look for a vocalist that sounds like someone in particular. So the first thing we can do is search it over here, but I'm going to head over to Find Vocalists and show you where the real action happens when you're trying to search for someone who sounds like someone. So I'm just going to write in Dido because I have an urge for a Dido track. Gender, well, that would be female. Vocalist fee, I'm probably going to go 350 to 1,000, and we're ready to go. There we have it, our first singer, which sounds like Dido. Let's see what she sounds like. A hell of a lot like Dido, if you ask me. The next thing you can do is open.
I just find this app to be hilarious. Like, if I would just go on there to just literally search people that I want to find to sound like other people and just listen to see if they sound like it. I mean, that's the type of person that I am. That's what I do with my spare time. So, but I just think it's funny. But right, once again, crazier things have happened, right? You could potentially find like the perfect vocalist on this app. Who knows? So that is Vocalizer.
And if you like,
let's keep going. I have to do a little section on Ableton Link. If you haven't used Ableton Link, this is really cool. If you're in the same house, but you have to be distant, for whatever set of reasons, right? If you're on the same Wi-Fi network, you can sync, and your production partner's in the next room, but you guys can't be together for whatever reason. You can sync your Ableton. I just want to. good feature that you can use. I mean, it's not necessarily a remote application, but I just think it's a nifty feature that a lot of folks don't take advantage of. I mean, I used to just like hit play and then like sync the clicks. That's amazingly effective, but this is way more intelligent. So just do this. Don't do as I say, not as I do. So there's Ableton Link. We're almost done here. Some honorary mentions. Source Connect. I didn't go too deep into Source Connect because it's pretty expensive, but also a really great tool for remote collaboration. And also Flat, which is a really cool application that allows you to create sheet music collaboratively and in a cloud. So that's a thing. All these things are things. I appreciate everybody sticking in there. I hope you learned at least one or two resources that you didn't know of before you came here. And I hope that you'll go and work with at least one of them and see if you can make some music, right? Because I think the biggest thing is that we stay active and stay moving and stay making music. So I'd like to thank each of you for your time and coming to hang out today. This was remote recording for the modern musician.